As meeting of the Executive Committee of the Buckinghamshire and Milton Keynes Fire Authority. The meeting will be recorded and uploaded to the authority's YouTube channel. We'll go straight to the agenda items, and item 1 is the election of chairman. I'll take these if that's okay. Right, do we have any nominations for election of chairman? Councillor Stutchbury?
I'm going to propose Councillor Lumley.
Great, thank you. Councillor Singh?
Second.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Okay, thank you. In which case, I duly declare Councillor Mugger duly elected as chairman of the Executive Committee. Congratulations. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. So we move on to appointment of vice chairman. Do we have any nominations? Well, we do, because I will nominate from the chair, Councillor Percy Bailey of Milton Keynes. Do we have a seconder for that? Make now the same. Any further nominations? Then I declare Councillor Bailey elected vice chair of the committee. Gertie, do we have any apologies, please?
Yes, we've got councillors Bailey and Priestley, and councillors Lancaster and Sherwell are substituting.
Thank you for that. And we'll move on to the minutes. Do we have any questions of the minutes of the meeting held 19th of March? Questions to accuracy of the minutes only? Not at all. Thank you very much. We'll move on again then. Matters arising. We have any updates on those meetings from officers attending today?
So do you want me to take you through those?
If that would be helpful.
Yeah. First is minute EX45, 24/25. The chairman asked whether it would be more meaningful on the overdue audits to show a percentage of the overdue audits that were high or medium priority. The Director of Finance and Asset Supply. That would be a useful way of doing it, and as members were aware, the audits were graded between high, medium and low depending on the urgency they needed rectifying. Officers would pick up the high and medium ones as they were the ones of more concern to members, and this will be reflected in the performance facts for 25-26. Also under that item, the chairman asked about the big jump in the injury rate quarter on quarter. Was there anything members should be worried about? The data intelligence team manager did not think so, but would ask the health and safety manager to get back to members. The response from the health and safety team confirmed that this was the case, i.e. nothing to be concerned about on duty, and that coincidentally in the following quarter 4 the total number of injuries was lower than the 3-year average. Also under that agenda item, the chair and member asked about the over the border mobilisation figures. It showed there was a weakness, but did not say what the weakness was. It would be beneficial for members to have more detail to know where the weak spots were. The data intelligence team manager advises that the report was produced every year to be supplied to members, as well as giving the breakdown. Finally, under EX46, the gender and ethnicity pay gap report, the chairman asked that on the gender pay gap reporting, and the point made that it was not known how other services were looking at their data. Would it be worth seeing other services would work with this service and try to get a common set of standards, even if it was only 5 or 6 other services that might enable some best practice to be spread as the Crime Risk Sector. Ronnie Davison, the HR Advisory Development, Head Director of People, forgive me, advises that an HR community of practice is in place with other fire and rescue services to collaborate and identify best practice models for all areas of HR, including the pay gap reporting.
Thank you very much, Graham.
Sorry, just clarify that. Does that mean that for the next gender pay gap reporting, we'll have that common approach to look at?
Yeah, so we've set up communities of practice with other fire services, HR communities. Part of that, looking at consistency across the board, whether it's pay gap reporting or other reasons for HR.
Thank you. Moving on then, disclosure of interests. Do you have anything to add other than what is recorded? No, thank you. Any questions in accordance with standing order?
No, none, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Now the budget monitoring report to be presented by Asif Hussain.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Council. So today I'm going to put some financial action reports for 24-25. With a number of key highlights and recommendations that have been stated in the report. So I just want to give some brief headline financial positions overall. So the net underspend was 964,000. And this positive range is primarily driven by lower direct employee costs due to reduced bank costs and import costs, as well as vacancies and support roles. We also had higher than expected investment reserve return as a result of the bank payments stage based on more slower than the initial forecast. This resulted in the service receiving 536,000 more than the investment interest we had originally planned. Another key point that I just wanted to bring to members' attention was the one-off revenue credit we received from Airway in March 2025. We received confirmation from the Court of Appeal regarding the revenue motorway can generate from Airway charges. As a result, the service received a one-off credit of 287,000. This was a key movement since our last report in December and contributed to the increase in overall underspend from the previous forecast. I also want to kind of talk about the directorate kind of overspends and underspends in a bit more detail as well. And I want to provide some key breakdowns in those areas. So for corporate sport, we've got an underspend of 287,000, and predominantly most of this is driven by the strong investment return. However, some of this underspend is partially offset by the temporary restructure cost to support delivery of our improvement plan following the latest HMI-CFRS inspection. This resulted in some temporary roles that we've brought into the organisations, and these roles are under review to determine whether they should continue to be extended or made permanent. In terms of finance and assets, there was an underspend of 171,000. Again, this was predominantly due to the vacant post within the support staff and staff not being at the top of their pay scales. In terms of people directorate, there was an overspend of 242,000, and this was primarily due to additional training costs that were approved by the Fire Authority in June 2024. Originally, we had said that we were going to use one of the reserves to fund this, but as you can appreciate, we've already got an underspend of just under £1 million. There's no need to use reserves, so we've utilised our overall underspend to cover those costs. Finally, there was an underspend in delivery, corporate development and planning of 633,000. Again, predominantly most of this was in relation to the on-call costs and bank costs that I alluded to earlier. And this was only doable because our current operational establishment is over 300. And as we're over established, it's allowed us to kind of improve our pump availability and reduce reliance on banks and cross-border as well as on-call. The other bits I just wanted to bring to your attention was obviously as part of our monitoring throughout the year, we utilised this information when it came to setting our budget. So as part of our medium-term financial plan, we set a zero-based budgeting approach, and we looked at all these savings and kind of identified if we could kind of carry them forward into the future years, and that's what we've done. So in terms of bank and on-call costs, we've reallocated them throughout the service. So underspend do not continue to occur year on year. We've also looked at other areas and tried to identify savings. In terms of capital programme, the capital programme for the year was just over 3.6 million, and the provision allowance showed an underspend of 13k with a slippage of 1.6 million, which will be carried forward, and that's detailed in the report. There's also Appendix C in the report, which kind of sets out with the property works, and the report itself also highlights some of the capital work that have been carried out towards our appliances, ICT, operational equipment. There's one thing that I just wanted to bring to your attention that has changed from the report that's being presented to you, and it's in relation to our reserves. In terms of our reserves, there has been a change in relation to the fund held by Thames Valley Control Room. Capital expenditure for 2024-25 was not included in the outturn report, as it was not available at the point the report was being produced. Therefore, our share of the reserve has reduced to 479k, resulting in the overall position of reserves reducing from 15.1 million to 14.9 million. In closing, the outcome reflects prudent financial management, and the zero-based budgeting process has enabled us to set a budget that is aligned with our evolving needs of the service. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Rapid report. Any questions to our CFO, not Gary?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Really good report. It's really encouraging to see the whole time numbers up at 314. and the fact that that's had a positive impact on our pumps being able to turn out, and it's reduced our bank costs significantly, as well as the over the border charges from other services. So I think very, very good news. A little concerned to see the numbers forecast to drop to 304 by next year. That's a little concerning, and that might actually have an impact on our position as at the moment compared to then. So I don't know if we can look at that number and see if we can get that back up. Thank you.
And I just said from the chair, I raised exactly the same point as you. That would actually just bring us down to still just above establishment, which is 300. But I agree, if we have the funds and we can maintain the higher level, the obvious advantages are there, and let's hope we can maintain them. If anyone else wants to add to that, I say well,
yeah, thank you, Chair. That's something we've done constant review. So you can see we plan to take an apprentice cohort as part of that. We forecast a set number of retirees, leavers, etc. We'll review that every month through Ronnie's people delivery group. And we have other means that we may take a transferee intake, for example, because it's not just about numbers, it's about skills and experience as well. So it's something we keep constant eye on because we recognise it is really important, as Councillor Hall said. It's made a real big difference to the service the last couple of years. So it's something we want to keep a key focus on, definitely.
good, thank you. Any further questions?
So my questions are related to this point, so if that might be.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, thank you very much for optimistic report. In one of the things which we have to wonder, is it a snapshot of where we are today and it's going to go south, or are we like to maintain that underspend? The other point being, you mentioned that staffing levels and pay, we've got to catch up with their attainment and rights to salaries, which will rise because you stated that if people haven't reached the top of their grade, which will happen in any organisation, people will progress. You factored in that going forward to make sure we are covering that to the fullest extent, because the important things we do is resource our staff appropriately with wages. So, and how do you feel that's going to progress? And will we understand cover that without looking to other means?
Yes, thank you for that. That's a good question. I'm not expecting those might be strange coming from me as well. From an underspend point of view, ideally, I don't really want them in the funds because it's kind of not best utilising the funds that we have and wanting to reallocate it. The problem we had with this underspend was it wasn't year on year. Is around the bank and investment returns, and what we could have done was we had a choice between, do we utilise it and build something into the base, or do we set this into our reserve, in particular our capital reserves, because we've got our aspirational capital programme coming up in the next few years with Westcott and the works around our estates. So that's the direction we took with that. In terms of our staff salary establishment stuff, that's captured as part of our medium-term financial plan. So we do an annual review of what our salary costs are and new posts coming in, and we factor that in when we're setting our budget. So I'm quite comfortable that we've set our budgets accordingly. The point that you initially made around is this the picture and snapshot of where we are now. I just want to kind of put it on the table now. There is a fair funding review that's due to kind of take place this year, and that's a bit of a big unknown until we get some further information. So if you want me to kind of comment on that until we get that information later in the year.
No, I totally respect that, and thanks for the answers. I thought that we've budgeted for that in any case, but you had mentioned it in the underspend. I thought it was a reasonable thing to mention, which you had mentioned it. So thank you for that, and I look forward to you bringing back the report on the review.
Thank you, Rob. Simon?
Thank you, Chairman. So I just want to build on that point, Asif as well, because you know, nearly a million of an underspend is a big miss. And you're right, we should be as concerned about that as we would be with an overspend, not least because I suspect it's led to us not being able to do some things that we would otherwise have done in here. So I suppose my question, building on that, I think this is now the third year of a significant underspend on the budget. And so with the benefit of zero-based budgeting, the benefit of what we can now see on the direction of travel on bank costs, which, you know, again, if you go back three and so years, it's a massive step forward. Is the case now not building for us to
bake in that higher level of establishment that we're running at rather than operate at the 300, because it seems to me we've now seen the benefit of all of that coming together in terms of availability, etc. So I do just wonder, last year we took a decision to invest in skills rather than headcount. I just wonder whether now the operational run rate is such that we should be moving the establishment. And I suppose my second question that flows from that is, when you look at this year's budget, we obviously can see as we're going through the year the direction of travel. What confidence can we have that we won't have a significant level of underspend in this financial year, and what steps could we be taking now to make sure that we're acting on any underspend so we can direct it to specific activities that we want to do?
Do we have anyone from the operational side who'd like to respond to that, as well as our CFO? I mean, Louise might want to come in at that point. I take your point, Simon. It aligns with what I said myself, that we've established the fact that we are better performing at that slightly higher level of employee. And if we can maintain that, surely that's better for us, to use your own expression, to make that into the basis. But I think it'd be good to have an operational response to that as well as Steve's point.
I mean, I could give a financial, just strictly.
Of course.
I mean, I'm happy to talk to it from an operational perspective. We know that the authority's decision to increase the establishment to 300, as councillors have commented on, has seen some significant improvement around availability and also bringing down that kind of bank or overtime cost. We are consistently able to provide the 12 whole-time appliances now that we say we will. Our availability is almost 100% across the 12. As the councillor said, we've done a lot of work around skills and qualifications, because it's not just a numbers game, it's key qualifications, driving being one of them, incident command being the other. We've still got a little bit more headroom there in terms of some further efficiencies we can get out of that area. At this stage, I don't know if there's a compelling enough position personally to exceed that 300, but we must at least maintain it, because actually there's a sort of sweet spot for me around use of or establishment and use of overtime, and it's just trying to work out if we've got that right at the moment. And I think we're about. That said, we are lean. We are lean as a fire service. We ride 4 on all of our appliances more often than not, which is nationally kind of comparable. Would I like to see 5 on a fire engine? Absolutely. But in terms of value for money for the taxpayer, we have a really efficient model at the moment. So I know I'm giving you an exact answer, but it's a balancing act with all the other needs of the organisation. 300 for me, I think, is a bare minimum, and it might be that there is some benefit going forward in going slightly above that, giving ourselves a little bit of slush, for want of a better word. But I'll probably pass back to finance when thinking about some of the other challenges we have in terms of capital programmes and balancing that revenue and capital pot.
Thank you. Useful input. Thank you.
Definitely. I would kind of side on the year of caution, because when you break that 953k down, over 500k of that is treasury investment returns. Now, we know the base rates fluctuate, and we can't kind of start utilising that and banking that in, because in a couple of years' time, the Bank of England base rate drops. We're not going to have that 500k in the base budget to kind of plan for future planning. The other bits around the airway grant credit as well, that was around, as the field claim. When you factor both those figures in, that comes to about 800k as well. But in terms of the bank that we spoke about earlier as well, we've already factored that as a saving. So I would just say with the fair funding review as well, I'd side on the year of caution of trying to build something into the base. Where I'd be more comfortable building stuff into the base is where we could build our funding into the base. So the best way to do that is the precepts, where we get flexibility and stuff, because that's guaranteed income and funding that we're going to get year on year. That would give us the sustainability that we need. But I appreciate that that's obviously a political decision. And moreover, in terms of operation, I support that. It's shown that when we're over 300, we're doing really well. And probably that's the ambition and aspiration that we want to go with. So I guess it's just being a bit cautious with it, especially from a financial point of view.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add some context to that. So Treasury returns this year well over £1 million. They have been as low as about £150,000. It really is sensitive to the base rate. So we can't rely on that long term. So what we don't do is add to our establishment and have to take it down again just because the base rate has dropped. That would be quite frankly silly. The other part is some of the underspend, as I mentioned earlier, is driven by on-call and the activity being lower. We all know on-call is a challenge. We committed within the CRMP to review the on-call model. So there may be something there about we can use that much better to improve resilience in other areas. Because the on-call is really about providing that resilience rather than the kind of response, as Doug said. So there are some bits we can look at in that respect as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll see if you
So
want
the second bit, that Councillor Ross mentioned around, providing surety around, ensuring that there's no underspend in the current year. So, members may recall, we've got a new governance structure in place now as well, where we've got delivery boards from each directorate, and they've got the opportunity to look at these underspends on a regular basis if we start seeing them early on and repurpose them as soon as possible. And I think that structure would really help the organisation to kind of reallocate underspends in here to stop us from trying to be in this position and better utilise our money when we have it in place.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that's all been very helpful. Thank you. Sorry, next time. I'll go to Nick now.
I was just wondering, there's been an uplift in the preventative programme. Is that bearing fruit in the sense of reducing on-call and reducing call-outs? Because I know that you've been out to the mosques, you've been out to the churches, you've been out to the fates and fairs, giving out devices and stuff. Has that borne fruit? Because kind of an investment for the future that's reduces our costs for the future as well.
Okay, I'll probably have to refer to one of our.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to take that, Councillor. I think, the service have been doing prevention and protection activity for many years alongside our response activity, obviously with an intent to drive down our need for response. And we're really comfortable with our prevention programme and how we resource. And obviously through the recent inspection, we've had, whilst we did have some challenges around it, we've had a cause for concern lifted and we're in a better place. I suppose it's never going to stop a need to respond to a variety of incident types. So when we look at through our CRMP, we kind of have to look through the lens of all of those functional areas and how do we best make use of our resource ultimately.
Has there been any attempts to the form to do it? Well, this is the item to do on analysis that prevention and your prevention activities do bear fruit.
So one of the things we do through our governance is, and obviously up to authority, is report on a number of key performance measures. So we do look across our prevention activity, for example, and how that might impact response. So number of false alarms in the home, different incident types that we've attended. So we can see some measure of success, if you like, from that activity, and we review that on a monthly basis. But there's still clearly going to be a response requirement, and we are pretty content that our resources are in the right places when that response requirement is needed.
I just want to commend the service. That I've seen them at a lot of events, and the positive PR that gives, and also the confidence it gives in the public when you give them small devices, smoke devices, and those sort of devices. You don't give them all the time, any time. I'm sure it's depending on funding, but it does inspire confidence in the public.
I think that's the evidence is there that the investment is delivering. So thanks for that.
To build on that point,
Yes, Simon.
yeah, and thanks for the question. It's a really good question. I think over the last 10, 15 years, we have seen a reduction in the number of calls because of the success of prevention over many years. I think I was with the NFCC yesterday, and what we're talking about was that we're actually starting to see. I mean, locally we're seeing a bit of a plateau at the moment, so it's difficult to see where it's going to go. But nationally, incident numbers are starting to rise again, and I think we need to factor all of that into our CRMP, which we are doing. And one of the things that is also a risk to it is those low frequency, high impact events. So how do we get big more quickly to deal with it? So prevention has definitely had an excellent impact, and it continued to in many ways. But there are other multifaceted influences that are kind of leading to perhaps we might see numbers starting to increase over time of incidents.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we move on. Robin?
Yeah, thank you for that, Mark. We keep talking about the fair funding review. Sometimes the fair and funding never necessarily mean the same thing. One thing that I think we need to be is the fact that Buckinghamshire and Milton Keynes has got a very low precept compared to other comparable private properties, and we can't stress strongly enough that we need to make that evidence available in any future funding review, because any changes in funding would affect us far greater than it would affect somebody else who's got a larger base. And we don't need to go into historicals why that is. That's totally irrelevant at this stage. And the other thing is we do need to monitor that, and I will seek assurance that we're going to have conversations about laying out where we are, what we've done, where we got to in the journey to actually achieve what we've done within the limited fund that we've got. That's the first risk. The second risk I feel to us is that we do need to, and I believe that will be the case, is that we come back at a future date and discuss the on-call programme around vulnerabilities, the economic viability, and the way that we can progress that. I hope that will come back in future. But both of those points are, the first one is a red flag to me. And the second one is something that we do have control over internally. So I think that we can do that internally, that sensibly, but the other one we have no control over, and that's a risk.
Thank you, Robin. I think it would be helpful going forward if you just make a point that if we stick to direct questions, and if we have issues that we would like to see raised at a future meeting, if you work through myself, I'll ensure that they are agenda items for future. But I think your points are well made, Gary.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on page 31, I just have a comment to make, stroke concern really. We're talking about one particular fire station that has historically been completely inactive, is currently inactive, and is probably going to be inactive in the future. And yet we're planning to spend considerable sums of money on a fire station that isn't being used. And I wonder if that represents good value for money, because I'm concerned that it might not be good value for money.
Do you want me to say that one?
We covered it very easily.
So yeah, it's a very good spot. I guess the point is, if that fire station is intended to continue to be part of our estate and be utilised for some sort of operational activity, that's the amount of money that will need to be spent on it. Like you, officers have a real reservation about let's be honest, a station that hasn't offered response availability for a number of years, and whether that is the best use of money going forward. I think councillors are aware that we intend to have some conversations with the authority about what that looks like going forward and how we can best utilise our on-call service and the estate that goes with it, because we don't want to throw money at a estate that essentially isn't delivering anything for us at the moment.
Yeah, I just wonder, just for the new member, could you just clarify that what that station has actually done over the last few years was actually zero, isn't it? It's nothing.
Yeah. Stoke Church has one member of staff, and that member of staff reports to another on-call station to deliver their on-call duties, because clearly one member of staff doesn't give us any ability on it.
No, I think we're aware of the situation and the whole issue of on-call. As the station's affected, it's in the CRMP, we will be looking at it through the year.
I just want to add that it's ironic this has come up because the first thing that someone actually said to me on public was asked about this station. What's happening to it? Is it for sale? What's going on? And I was going to do that offline, but you brought it up, but I can go back and say it's still part of the active roster at the moment.
Okay. All right, Sharon, go on. Any more questions to ask on the public monitoring? No? Thank you. Then move on to item 9, state assent. Sorry?
Recommendation.
Oh, yes, sorry, I apologize. The recommendations from that report are set out on page 17. Sorry, my copy's not on page 17. I put them to you that we accept those recommendations.
Agree.
Everyone agree? Yeah. And move on to item 9, safety centre. Adam.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, councillors. Before I start, for the record, there is a minor inaccuracy on page 33, which is the second paragraph of the executive summary. It does refer to the CRMP of the corporate risk management plan, where in fact that should read community risk management plan. So apologies for that. That will be corrected. But this paper provides an update on the 3-year partnership agreement between the authority and the safety centre, Hazard Alley, which is due to conclude on 30th of September 2025. The current agreement provides £25,000 a year of funding, supporting the delivery of vital community safety education, aligned with our community risk management plan and the 2025 annual plan priorities. Between September 24 and June 25, the Safety Centre has delivered preventative education to over 12,000 students across Buckinghamshire and Milton Keynes. Sessions are delivered both at Hazard Alley and directly into schools, covering a wide range of life-saving topics, including fire and water safety, road safety, online safety, first aid, night crime prevention. The report, as you can see, covers other highlights, which includes the centre securing £50,000 grant funded for targeted night crime intervention and violence prevention. They have made pathways to launch a new website and online booking system to increase the reach and efficiency. And the centre and its staff receiving recognition through the High Sheriff's Award and being finalists in 2 categories for the MK Business Achievement Awards, celebrating diversity and skills for learning, which is really great to see. The Safety Centre has recently completed the recruitment of a new chief executive who is due to take up their post on the 1st of September 2025. Due to this change in leadership, the timeline for reviewing and establishing a new long-term funding agreement may be delayed. As such, a further paper will be presented to full fire authority in October to seek approval to extend the current partnership agreement until the end of the financial year. This extension will provide sufficient time to co-develop a new agreement in Q4 25-26, which is aligned with our ambitions set in the strategic annual plan and CRMP. Before I stop for any questions, I do want to take a moment to thank Maya, who's the outgoing chief executive, who's gone on to pass this leave, because it's clear to see that she's moved the Safety Centre, along with all of our dedicated team and the 45 volunteers that support the centre forward. And I want to take the opportunity to thank her. So more than happy to take any questions.
Any questions? John? Sorry.
Yeah, another question, just a comment. As Mayor of Aylesbury last year, I had the opportunity when the High Sheriff and Magistrates Conference at the centre to actually go around and have a full look at the place, and it is terrific. It does provide a really good service. It provides a service that goes beyond the remit of the geographic remit of this authority. One of the struggles that it has is that because it has to charge, obviously, to cover the costs of what it is delivering, that it's pricing some schools out of the market, which is unfortunate, but is the way of the world. But I would be utterly supportive of any support that this authority can give to them. It is a worthwhile community activity in the first place, and it is also, like your guys going around and knocking on people's doors, it is a preventative measure, and a preventative measure that hits people when they're 8, 9, 10, 11 is much more effective than one that hits them when they get to our age.
Absolutely. And I think there is a benefit, I'll come to you, James, that they then pass on that information at home, which is helpful. Sorry, James.
I would completely agree with Alan on that. It's just a shame, as Alan's mentioned, that the cost, which is at the moment at £10 per child to go, And the real cost is about £30 per child to go. So that £20 deficit, which is having to be covered by the safety centre, is just alarming. And if I know they have to put it up to £12.50, and so it'll be a £17.50 cover. So every time that we're having to look at making these implications in help towards safety, there's still a deficit. And I know we want to make it more attractive to schools, because saying £12.50 per child adds up. So I know I've used my wallet before to help towards that, but it's just being able to see what we can do to able to help them. I think 75 grand is a lot of money that we can give over 3 years. I wish I could give more, so I would be really supportive in what we can do to support the safety centre. I think they do fantastic work. The stuff they put in for equality, diversity and inclusion recently with the induction loop, to be able to help people who are deaf to be able to actually hear what's going on, but also neurodiversity being a big thing coming up. We're very supportive of that in Milton Keynes. That's what we're seeing in the city centre with the umbrella project. So anything we can do to help businesses that actually start wanting to make those differences, we should be fully supportive of.
Thank you, James. Any further? I actually had a conversation on. Yeah, Robin, again, if you have a question, please. Yeah,
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, thank you for the report. What it tells us is, like everything in life, that there isn't quite the resource we want, and it's expensive, and we can't. And it's been said by 2 fellow councillors that the uplift of it is 55 the cost. The value of it is far outstrips what it can offer, far outstrips what people are able to obtain. There are important factors in it. The question being, how do we push them forward in an envelope where people restricted funds in schools and whatever can't take this up? Is there any scope for us to look at whether there's any other way we can ease some outside funding to do that, or whether we can partnership that? Very much along the point that James made about trying to partnership this to be able to achieve a high level, because the value of this and the awareness of it is so obvious to all of us. If people know about the diversity, inclusion and everything, and we do that, we bring awareness. That in the long term is going to be a saving, because people are more aware of their risks and how they do it. So, especially, are we able to, and is there somewhere we can go to look to get some outside funding for it to bring down the cost per unit to the school? If that isn't possible, well, it isn't possible, but I think we should explore it. I think there's a view around here that it's a good thing.
Absolutely, thank you. I think 3 things. I did actually discuss earlier, I was talking to Betty about this very thing, and I'm looking at the idea of us having a meeting that would be held at the safety centre, that we'd invite all members to, which I think would help us spread the word among our own members. And maybe we could do that by having a meeting at the Blue Light Hub and then move on to the safety centre. I know that would take up more time, but I think that we've got 2 excellent facilities there at Milton Keynes, which all members should become aware of. I think in terms of wider funding and extra support, I'd suggest that maybe initially this is something we could take offline, and some of us discuss ourselves and come up with ideas, and then bring it back to a future exec meeting with a full report with a view to looking at whether we can recommend other sources to the safety, other sources of funding, and how we might approach additional funding ourselves, either directly or indirectly. Would members go along with us?
Yeah, just one caveat to that. We are a split authority across the 2 principal unitaries. I think it would be to broaden that scope out, because both unitary councils benefit in education from this. So I think that conversation must be broadened out. James made the point that he personally supported these things from other funds. So I think there's scope there. We could do something grand and actually cooperate. So I think the conversation from that should see whether the thing about the youth councils is they should know other funding streams per se that would be in their responsibility, that may support it. So, cutting them out of the question, I think is probably the wrong thing. We should make sure it's inclusive.
Indeed, I think that was the point of trying to take it offline.
I think it must also be noted that we are given further support by providing a senior officer as a trustee.
Indeed.
And that, has been involved in charity for over 40 years. That is sometimes more valuable than the funding.
Yeah.
Because finding people to help run these things are very, very experienced, and skilled people to run these things is almost as tough as the funding.
Yeah, I was just going to provide assurance to everybody that everything that's been discussed is kind of part of the discussions and the ongoing discussions that are happening with the safety centre, and hence the kind of recommendation that we allow the new chief exec to come in and to find their feet, to understand some of the challenges like many charities are facing, and see how we can then look at, you know, exploring and continuing that partnership more long term, which is part of our commitment in our community risk management plan. All of the what's been discussed will be part of those discussions moving forward, and will be kind of presented in that paper.
Yeah.
And just to build on that, and I suppose give members a bit of confidence. Ultimately, I think we all agree here that the safety centre offers really good value for money for us in terms of partial delivery of our prevention activity and education programme. And it's desperately sad that ultimately there are some children in schools that can't access it because of the cost associated. But for your confidence, it's one part of what we do from an education perspective. So we are reintroducing school visits on top of that ourselves, where teams, crews, officers will go out. And one of the things that we'll be looking at from a kind of key objective around that is going to areas of deprivation, and therefore we will probably pick up some or all of those schools that maybe can't get access to safety. So from a service perspective, we can tackle it from a few angles, I suppose.
Thank you very much. We will actually have a report, I believe, coming to full authority in October on this. So we'll certainly pick it up again in detail at that point. Was that a point you're going to make? Okay. Thank you all. If there's no further questions, then the recommendations are to note the report. I'm happy with that.
Agreed.
Thank you. And that moves us on to date of next meeting, September the 10th at 10 a.m. I'm content with that. Thank you. Thank you all for your attendance today. Look forward to seeing you again in the not too distant future.